So alongside Apple releasing iOS 16.4 to the entire public, on the same day they dropped iPadOS and iOS 16.5 Beta 1 to all developers to try out, test out, and see if there's any A, new features, B, any bug improvements, and then also anything worth sharing kind of that foreshadows maybe something in the future. But without further ado, let's talk about iOS 16.5 Beta 1, everything that it brought, and if there's really anything worth upgrading to. But let's get into it. Okay everyone, let's get right into this video, and let's first look at the actual size of the build. I did take a screenshot, so if I go into my photos, you can see that we are dealing with iOS 16.5 Developer Beta 1. It is 5.46 gigs of storage, so that's how much it's going to entail. Make sure you leave at least 10 gigs of storage, and just because it is that big doesn't mean there's going to be a lot of new feature sets. This is just the installation of a brand new iOS update. So Beta 2 will be much smaller, less than a gigabyte of space. And then when it does actually release to the entire public, this is usually what the public is going to see. So if you did update to 16.4, you saw that 16.4 was around the same size. So every time Apple goes to a brand new iOS update, expect it to be larger in size than a normal beta update. But this is what you're dealing with in terms of size. And then if we go into our settings and we go to the general, go into our about, go to iOS version, then we get to see what version we're on. So this beta version of iOS 16.5 contains bug fixes and improvements, and we're dealing with 20F5028 lowercase e. So as we get closer and closer to the final release, that E moniker will lower. We'll get to C, B, A, and then I'll finally get rid of it for the RC edition, and then we go from there. We should expect this to come out within the next 6 to 8 weeks. So the next beta update normally will come out 2 weeks from today, and then as we get closer to Beta 3 and Beta 4, it'll start coming out on a weekly basis instead of a bi-monthly basis. So keep that in mind. This is the first iteration of iOS 16.5 Beta 1. And now to actually get this installed, make sure that you either have a developer account or a public developer account. If you have a public developer account, this should be coming out relatively soon if you haven't gotten it already. But go into your software update to get the over-the-air updates, and if you click on the beta updates here, you'll be able to decide which version you want, and then it'll automatically update then, and then you'll be able to get the over-the-air updates very simply. So I am part of the developer program, and this new update system was made to wean out all the people that were pirating all the developer betas and were able to get it for quote-unquote free, because it does cost about $100 a year to be part of the developer program. So now in terms of what's new, there wasn't too much new from a tangible feature standpoint. There was only two real things. The first one is that we can now use Siri and use a Siri command to actually start and stop a screen recording. So I'm not going to say the command because I don't want everybody's iPhones to freak out, but I will do one of these. Start a screen recording. And then as you see right here, we are actually screen recording. But one thing that's different about a screen recording doing it this way versus a normal screen recording through the control center is that the animation looks a little bit different. So here, the dot is a little bit smaller, and you actually can't interact with it on the dynamic island. Normally, you can long press it and get kind of like a little menu or a little way to actually stop it. But let's actually stop it right here, and then I'll show you what it looks like with regular control center. Stop screen recording. So you can see that it's all done. Screen recording was added to my photos. And then to show you how it's done with Control Center. So Control Center, I'll long press. And one thing about screen recording through Control Center is that by default, the microphone is turned off, but you can easily turn it back on, which is what I personally like to do. And if you use Siri to actually start that up, by default, the microphone will be turned off. So now if we do it from the Control Center, I actually press start recording. You can see that we have a different animation. You have a little bit of a countdown right there, which is good. The actual dot is a little bit bigger and it doesn't have kind of like that little Wi-Fi looking thing. And then if you long press on here, you actually get a little bit of an animation to allow you to actually stop it, and you get to see some times that are happening right there. So that is what it looks like normally, but now you can actually activate it and deactivate it through Siri. And now in my opinion, probably the most important update, maybe visually it's not super important, but what it means moving forward is that if you go into your news application, and if you go on the bottom here, we get a brand new tab for sports. So Apple's been really pushing their sports kind of library or their sports support over the last couple months and years. So Apple basically purchased the rights over the next 10 years to be the exclusive provider of MLS, which is Major League Soccer. They're in discussions of getting some NBA exclusivity as well, similar to Amazon and football and the NFL. So Apple's putting a big push into sports because they realize how lucrative sports are, right? Between ad revenue, the teams, all the TV deals that happen, Apple can make a large sum of money because they can provide a service like this My Sports tab, which is very, very useful, right? I love the interface. You have your scores right here. I already have my favorite team set up, so I'm a big Miami sports fan. You know, they lost yesterday, their upcoming game today against the Knicks. You know, I'm following all my teams right here. You get highlights down here. They have the For You page, some other news kind of in that arena, in that space. And I'm just a big fan of the sports app, right? This could replace things like Bleacher Report, things like ESPN, these applications that I've been using for years and years and years. Now that Apple has it built into Apple News, like, I don't see a reason why I need to have Bleacher Report unless I really like kind of the social media aspect of it. And ESPN already is a little bit clunky, so having this is perfect. And then also there is dynamic island support. So if you are watching a game in real time or you have a game going on in real time, it'll show you the score in live kind of format right then and there. Now I can't show you right now because the games aren't being played, but I love that integration. So you have dynamic island integration, and then also when it is playing, you have the ability to open it into the Apple TV app and then be able to watch it as well. So it's all kind of built in, it's seamless, it's easy, it makes sense, and it's just, I think it foreshadows what Apple's doing moving forward in the sports arena. They're putting a big foot forward because they realize there's a lot of money in that, and there's a lot of sports fans. I know in the tech community, maybe not as much, but I'm a huge sports fan, so for me, this is a huge deal. And another thing that I wanted to kind of show off is that in the code for iOS 16.5, we did notice that there is some code that indicates a new quad box picture mode for viewing, which is going to be great for sports. So if Apple at some point does get exclusivity rights to get some NBA games, maybe more MLS games, maybe even some NFL games, you have the ability to then show those videos and those sports games in a quad box setup, which I think is great. I know YouTube TV is doing that now. They kind of started doing that during March Madness to be able to show up to 4 games at once on one single TV, which has been something that companies like DirecTV have had for years, but now Apple getting into it and having that seamless UI and being able to use it natively on iOS, iPadOS, macOS, tvOS, it all just makes everything that much easier to then use. And the last thing I do want to show off is in here, you do have one new feature, which is a shared admin in the Home app is now able to pair/add Matter accessories. So if you give admin access to somebody in your HomeKit, they'll now have the ability to add kind of new devices on your behalf into the actual home, which is great to have if you do want to share it with, let's say, your wife, your partner, your kids even, or anybody else, maybe roommates that live with you. You're able to now have one HomeKit application that brings everything together where everybody can control it. And now what I want to do is briefly talk about battery life. So if we go into our settings, go into battery down here, I'd like to show you guys what I've been doing over the last couple days. Now I am using the 14 Pro Max now. I will be using it for a little while longer, but in the last 10 days, we are dealing with about 7 hours and 19 minutes of screen on time with not a single time did I hit 100%. So on a day like this, where I had 9 hours and 44 minutes of screen on time, I used up about 85% of my battery. I probably could have gotten 11 hours of screen on time. Now again, this is a brand new battery. I'm at 100% maximum capacity. Something like my 13 Pro Max will probably get me anywhere from 6 to 7, maybe 8 hours, depending on what type of usage I'm getting. But this is a great indication to let you know that battery life on a brand new device especially is going to be outstanding. Now on a 13 Pro Max with 88 to 89% battery health, you're getting anywhere from 6 to 8 hours as opposed to maybe anywhere from 9 to 11 hours. And now the last thing that Apple introduced, if you go into Apple's press release website, the Apple introduced Apple Pay Later to allow consumers to pay purchases over time. So Apple's been talking about this for an entire year now at this point. It's still not fully available. You need to be on 16.4 for it to be an option for you. And then you also need to get an email invite in order to be able to use it. So right now, I do not personally have access to it, but the idea is simple, right? There's countless companies that now do this buy now, pay later situation. You have Afterpay, companies like Zelle, PayPal, everybody has some sort of version of this now. So it basically allows you to break up payments of one single purchase anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. But Apple's in particular, you get to purchase and apply for a loan with a soft credit pull of anywhere from $50 to $1,000, unless you break it up into 6 equal payments over 6 weeks, and the UI looks great. Lets you know how much is due over the next 30 days, what each payment looks like. So now you can get into even more depth through Apple. And the idea is that if you make your payments on time, there's zero interest on this quote-unquote loan. It's a soft credit pull. It can really only help your credit if you pay everything on time, and it will only hurt your credit if you actually miss payments and don't pay it in full and things like that. So if you use it how it's supposed to be used, there's going to be zero credit pull on getting that quote-unquote loan. And then also, it'll help out your credit if you use it correctly. But I'm just not a big fan of this. If you want to get something, just pay for it all at once. That's just my personal opinion. And then lastly, some things that are still missing that was promised during WWDC is the new immersive CarPlay. We still have not seen that be released. And then also, the ability to use a savings account. So Apple did tout a brand new high yield savings account, which should have came out a while ago, but probably with the issues with banks going on right now, they want to avoid that. But the idea would be to go into the daily cash and then earn some interest on your Apple daily cash overall. But that is everything new with iOS 16.5 Beta 1. Let's finish up this video. So as everybody saw, there weren't too many new updates, especially any new tangible features. The only tangible feature that we got was the ability to now have a new sports window or sports tab inside of Apple News, and then we also got that new Siri implementation. I'm not 100% sure why Apple's adding this now of all times. Like, they could have added this Siri implementation of screen recording a long time ago, but maybe Apple finally got around to it and there was enough of a reason and enough of an ask to get that done. But overall, iOS 16.5 is extremely stable right now. Yes, it was a large update, and it probably foreshadows some more stuff in the future, like the Apple Buy Now, Pay Later, which did technically release already to some people, but we were not able to get our hands on it quite yet because Apple is doing that on a per-user basis and sending out email invites in order to actually use that functionality through Apple Pay. And then also the new savings account still hasn't happened, which is kind of a bummer. I was expecting Apple to release that a while ago to then kind of build upon from an interest perspective on all your Apple Daily Cash and things like that. But that's going to do it for this video, everybody. Let me know in the comment down below. Did you update to iOS 16.5 Beta 1? Did you see anything else that we missed? Let's discuss in the comments down below. I'm a big fan of the My Sports tab. It's probably going to replace my Bleacher Report and my ESPN kind of browsing and applications, which again is another thing that Apple's doing, cannibalizing their own app store and their own third-party developers because they could probably do it better with all the first-party data that they've gathered over the years on us. But that's going to do it, everybody. If you made it to the end, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below. And this was a whirlwind day for Apple to release all this stuff, and I'm just excited to see what Apple has next. And hopefully we'll get a WWDC announcement relatively soon. But that's going to do it, everybody. If you guys want to watch some more macOS, iOS, or iPadOS content, click on one of these right here. And until next time, I'm Fernando, and I'm out of here, everybody. Definitely stay subscribed because we have a really good iPadOS walkthrough video coming out, which you guys are going to enjoy. Peace.